Welcome back. I think we are now ready for questions. Engineer, can you hear me? Can you talk?
Yeah, are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Just a minute. Let me position your camera. All right. All right, members. I think the floor is now ours for questions. I think we can do that in the next 30 minutes so that we can brainstorm together and go on. I think the first question I will give Diana. Ladies first. Anybody with a burning question before Diana comes back? Her microphone is off. Engineer, I have a question.
Yes.
Why do you think there is a lot of information that is not coming out from IEK? Because the public is generally not informed of the presence of the existence of IEK. Most students happen to only know Engineers Board of Kenya when they graduate from university and they go to workplace. What could be ailing IEK in not offering such information to students or to the general public? And the other one, as is how best can engineers benefit from IEK? IEK, as we know it, is a welfare society for engineers. How best is IEK fighting for engineers' welfare? And why should engineers join IEK? Because as it is right now, people are paying training levies, people are paying subscription fees, but mostly they're just there to be heard and not to be seen, rather not to be heard. Graduate engineers are many in number, but they don't vote. Then there are many in Engineers Board of Kenya, but they are not registered in IEK. Why? What should be done so that the welfare of engineers is well catered for and is well fought for by IEK?
Okay. I can answer.
Yes, yes.
Can I? Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Your first question regarding information not coming from IK that students only know about EBK and so forth is still related to absence of structures. It is related to absence of structures. I don't know whether I should say this because I don't know what it can reflect on, because I don't want to cast aspersions on the standing of some candidates as a matter of courtesy. But what I can say is that the members of the council who have the mandate to share information with members and students have no structure to rely on. Each person relies on his own initiative as an individual, and he tries his best to pass that information without any established structure. And that's why I was saying that if we have structures, we have an empowered secretariat, which is given responsibility, whose responsibilities are very clear to them. And one of them is advocacy. One of them is to ensure that as much information as possible is available to members and the public about what IEK stands for. Then things will just work. But you see now, if you compare the way the current council is operating with the way the previous council was operating. They were worlds apart. And yet they are talking about the same institution. So what is the difference? Well, the difference is the people. The people are there. And that should not arise. It should not arise if we have good structures. So that's I think, the main reason why information is not flowing. So we cannot accuse the council of maybe sitting on information. It is because they don't have a structure within which that information can be passed to the stakeholders. And that's why I was saying, if we can empower our secretary, they can do it, because right now they are not doing anything. The secretary is actually underutilized. Then how engineers can benefit from IEK being a welfare organization is that, you see, right now there are so many interests. You know, our welfare organization is an interest group. It serves the interests of its members. And to serve the interests of your members, you must be very active. I can remember Engineer Nicholas Bumbo telling us in one of the meetings that we have to claim our space. We cannot sit back and expect maybe the minister in charge of infrastructure or the government do it for us. It is us to do it ourselves. So we must have a system by which, one, we we kind of have a very strong advocacy wing, and secondly, we come out to champion our interests as engineers. So if we do that, again, within an established structure, then engineers will benefit, because IEK will be the organ through which our interests are served. We have been talking about scale of fees. We have been talking about encroachment in our industry by foreigners. We have been talking about, I mean, what do you call it? Internship, graduate engineers, all these things, they stand or fall on good structures. Then the question of graduates, why graduates are not voting, and yet they pay subscription fees and things like that, and why instead of going to IEK, they go to, no, you say that there are more members, there are more graduates, there are more registered graduate engineers at EBK than there are graduate members at IEK. Now, this is a question of governance. Now, in our draft constitution, although we still have to submit it to the council for concurrence before it comes to members, but I can say here that we have made a proposal to the council as a committee that graduate engineers, being bona fide members of IEK, have what I can call myself as inalienable right to vote. You cannot be a member of a society who pays subscription fee and you are not allowed to participate in the election of your leaders. That is a violation of human rights, basic human rights. So we have already made that proposal, and I doubt if the council will have the guts to shoot it down. So that will be sorted out. Now, when it comes to membership of, registration of the EBK being in larger numbers than membership of IEK as graduate engineers, I think we cannot blame IEK for that. I think the blame also rests with the graduates themselves. Just as we are saying that you have to claim your space, nobody can fight for you, you have to fight for yourself. Graduates should take the initiative to come and apply to become graduate members of IEK, because what does it take? It only takes 2 proposals to sign your application form after you have been registered by EBK as a graduate engineer to become a graduate member of IEK. So that is not something that we should blame IEK for. We can only blame IEK if students or graduate engineers have submitted their applications and they have been rejected. That's when we can blame IEK. But if graduates are not coming out to do it on their own, then they are themselves to blame. Thank you.
Members, the floor is yours. Any questions? You can just unmute your mic and ask.
Somebody has sent a text.
Yes, yes.
What? Called Mugalu. He says, "Hi, Engineer Uma. What should we as GEs expect from you within the first quarter of your term in office?" What I can say is that what GEs will expect from me is an attempt, a spirited attempt to link up with EBK and harmonize the list of graduate engineers, registered graduate engineers, with the list of our graduate members, so that that gap that Anthony has talked about is bridged. That is something that is easily doable. It does not need a meeting. It does not need any resolution. It does not need resources. It only needs commitment and someone who understands what the role of the secretary and the secretariat is, which I do. Thank you.
So, Engineer Uma, how many responses?
Pardon?
Okay, how many responses did you get when you were doing the constitutional amendment? How many responses did you get? Because if I trust my memory, during the SGM, it was said that you got 2 responses. So does it mean that those 2 responses were the ones that will be used to determine the whole constitution? Or who else was also involved in that process, if you get what I mean? And actually, why is there no woman in that whole committee, the Constitution Review Committee?
Exactly,
Yeah.
I was about to ask that. And were members graduate?
That's Diana? Who is?
That was Diana, yes.
That is Diana Idanje asking.
Okay, thank you. Now, we received 3 responses when we called members out to give us their suggestions on which clauses they want to be amended or which provisions they want to be introduced in the new constitution. Interestingly, 2 of those responses were from technologists. They were not from graduate engineers or corporate members of IEK. They were from technologists. It's only 1, which was from a graduate member of IEK. I don't know what is the reason behind it, but I posted that notice in one of the informal forums of engineers, most of whom are very senior. And one engineer told me that the best way to go about it is for the committee to just go ahead and draft the constitution and then bring that draft to members for discussion, for interrogation. In other words, contrary to what we thought, that it is the members to give us what they want and ours is only to collect and collate it, this member thought that the best way is for the committee to draft what they think should be a good constitution for members, then present it to members for adoption or amendment. And that is actually now what we are doing, because having received only 3 responses, we had to sit down and brainstorm and do a lot of research, benchmarking with constitutions of other professional societies, and came up with the draft constitution, which we now want to present to members for discussion. Now, so the reason why only very few people responded is probably because, one, people are apathetic to some of these things. I don't know why, maybe it is a Kenyan culture. And two, probably what that engineer told us is what everybody expected, that they want to see a draft, regardless of who has given an input into it. Let it come to the floor and let members now interrogate it. So that is probably what I think might be the reason why the responses were that low. Then why there is no woman in that committee? I think that is a question which ladies are the ones who should answer, because the council sent out an invitation to members to express their interests in becoming members of that committee. And when after the committee was convened, we were told by Engineer Talanga, who was our chairman, that no lady expressed interest. So ladies should tell us why they did not express interest. So we now went out of our way to try to co-opt some ladies into the committee. And we wanted it to have some diversity in terms of disciplines, because right now we are 5 members, and 2 of them are civil engineers, 2 are mechanical, and 1 is electrical. So we wanted to look for an agricultural engineer or an electrical engineer who is a lady and who is a corporate member. And the ones we approached declined, citing various excuses. They're busy at their place of work or things like that. So we decided to continue the way we are. Thank you.
Engineer, is it a must for committee members to be corporate members?
The thinking of the council is that the members of these committees should be corporate members. But the constitution does not preclude graduate members from becoming members of any committee. I brought that issue during the tenure of the other council under Engineer Michael Okonji. And he agreed with me that the constitution does not prohibit the council from allowing graduate engineers into the committees, but at the end of the day, it is the council to decide. So he promised to raise it in the council, and he came back to tell us that the council's position was that it is only corporate members who should be members of this committee. So I think this council now, which succeeded Engineer Konje's council, shares that position, that members of committees should only be corporate members. Thank you.
Members, questions? You are in a committee, but I know you have information regarding online application. Many people are asking, when are we going to have this thing digitized, so that people don't have to go to Nairobi every time, or somebody graduates in say China or Korea and wants to be a member as he or she is still working somewhere. What is going on with the online application, so that members know in advance if it's going to be there, or we are going to be told to wait again until 2022?
I visited, I'm only a member of a committee. I'm not a member of the council, so I cannot really answer for the council. But what I can say is that I visited the website, I think yesterday, and that that option has not yet been operationalized. So I don't know whether someone is working on it. But what I know, because it was announced officially by the council at the last SGM, that online application is something which the council has made a resolution on, and it is going to be the case. But the logistics, the mechanism is not clear. Maybe it will become clear once it starts operating. So it is something which the council has already agreed to effect. But in my manifesto, if I am privileged to be elected as the Honorary Secretary of IEK, I will strive to push for 100% paperless operations culture at IEK, meaning that you will apply online. In fact, EBK is already effecting that. Graduates are now applying online, and what EBK does is to write to the referees independently, and the referees have to respond again online independently by email. We don't sign papers and send there. We just respond online, and it works. So it is something which should happen. And then I will strive to go a step further. I hope I will have a council that thinks like me and have a system whereby candidates can submit their projects online. They don't need to make so many copies and bind them, and they just need to submit them online. The examiners or the review panels receive them online. Everything can be done online at no extra effort. So that is something that I stand for, and I think it is something that is achievable.
All right.
Thank you.
As an academician, my side, that is, what is IEK doing on the projects and reports that have been submitted to check if there is plagiarism? Like we know so far, there are so many people who have sent their projects and their papers. Maybe there's a duplication in those things. Have you heard of any experience whereby they're taking counter checks to check on such issues? They're being extra keen. And if elected to the council, what measures will you try to bring in place so that these issues do not arise?
I can tell you for sure, and I'm sure you know that the current system of receiving projects in hard copy cannot enable the council to know whether that work has been plagiarized or not, because somebody just comes with printed documents and you go through it, and there's no way of knowing whether some other candidate had presented it elsewhere, not necessarily to IK. But if it is online, as you know, there are now softwares of confirming or checking whether that work is a work of plagiarism. If it is online, it's very easy to do that. So there are softwares for doing that. And that's why I am advocating for a paperless operation, because those things we're talking about will now be very possible. It will be very easy to do. But right now, I can tell you it is not possible. No human being can know whether that work is plagiarized. If somebody just presents a report in hard copy to you, you can't do it. So I will, after instituting that process of paperless operations culture, it will now be easy because these softwares are available. We just make it a policy that once a document has been submitted, we run it through that check. And if we agree that maybe if it is 60% somebody else's work, it is rejected, or 70%, whatever criteria we decide to use, then that is going to be the policy. So that is going to happen. Immediately we institutionalize our operations and implement a paperless operations culture.
Members, any question? Well, maybe you can answer this one also. visibility of engineers in this engineers institution, how visible will you make IEK to the public if elected? How will you encourage, maybe, or rather not encourage, but mentor students, not in individual capacity, but as an institution? And how will you enrich the northern Kenya and northeastern Kenya who are a bit marginalized? If we are engineers and we can make engineers in the ground there empowered, maybe we can give jobs to many people in say Turkana, Wajir, Elwak, and other places that are facing problems, say with terrorism and cattle rustling. How will you be able to do mentorship in those areas? Because as an honorary secretary, you should be able to disseminate information to the people so that people have some confidence in the institution that we have.
Yeah, on mentorship, right now, EBK has a very elaborate program on mentorship. I am one of the mentors that have been retained by EBK. Right now, I'm mentoring some graduate engineers under the auspices of EBK. And as those who attended today's World Engineering Day heard from the chairman of EBK, they will be working hand in hand with IEK. They will generally rely on IEK to implement this program. They have resources for graduate engineers for this purpose, because the hindrance in the past was a situation where you are willing to provide mentorship to graduates, but you may not have resources to do it. Right now, EBK is able to do that. So yours is only to provide your facilities and your resources in terms of human and office facilities, but not cash. I think the cash component is being handled by EBK. So if that is the case, then what IEK would do is to link members of IEK who may have the capacity to provide mentorship. Maybe they are running consultancies, or they are CEOs of government corporations. So there will be that linkage that will be provided by IEK. Now, on Northern Kenya, I can say that yes, it is true that engineers are shunning those marginalized areas, hardship areas, because there are no opportunities there. There's nothing that can attract them to go and establish their practices there. So what we have done in our wisdom as members of the Constitutional Review Committee is to propose some structures. We have proposed the establishment of chapters and branches. Chapters which are based on disciplines. You know, we can have the civil engineers chapter, electrical engineers chapter, and so forth. And then we have branches which are already there, but they are not very active. Right now, I think we only have Coast and South Rift, which are active. Central is a bit dormant, and the other regions don't have branches. So in our proposed constitution, we have provided for establishment of branches, generally based along the former provinces, such that every part of Kenya is covered by a particular branch. So when we do that, then every part of Kenya will be covered by the operations of or actions of IEK, in the sense that there will be some partnership or linkages between a branch and the county governments in those areas. So they will be giving technical support to those branches. If, for instance, a county government wants a technical committee on an engineering-based function, then the branch covering that region should be able to provide that, that expert. So that's how we intend to cover those marginalized areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any question? Mushiri, any question? Richard? Diana?
Hello.
Yes, hello?
Someone Ndolo.
Yes, yes, Bwana Mushiri. Dakika moja tu. Question?
Please go
Yeah,
ahead.
Hello, can I go on kindly?
Please do.
Yes, maybe this one goes to Engineer AUMA. There's something I'm trying to follow up regarding the collapse of building sector or substandard construction works. Maybe in your own understanding, where did we go wrong? Is it a policy issue or there's something that we don't get as a country? And it should not be the symptoms, because the symptoms are the building collapsing, the engineers not being engaged. We may want to know where did we go wrong? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I have a view that I don't think is being shared by most engineers, because most engineers are only concentrating on design. Every time something like that happens, we look for who designed it. Was it a registered engineer and things like that? But my view is that we should concentrate or emphasize supervision, because, as you know, even if a design is defective, but we have a competent professional supervising the works, he will be able to detect that defect and correct it so that it does not find its way into a complete building. But if, for instance, we have a good design which has gone through the necessary regulatory approvals, but there is no supervision, the contractor or whoever is implementing it can still ignore those specifications and do whatever he wants. So my take usually is that the integrity, the structural integrity of a building is as good as the supervision that was put into it. So I think as a policy, we should emphasize on supervision. And right now, we are working on the building code. Engineers have been requested to submit their views. Some of them have submitted, and Engineer Shama Kiteme is representing us in that committee. And we have proposed some measures which, if accepted by those who are going to draft the act or to draft the code, if they accept that, then I think that will help it, because at every stage, design, supervision, audit, and all those, at every stage, there should be a licensed engineer who will be personally held accountable in case something goes wrong. So I think if that is adopted, then we'll be able to take care of that. And as an institution, I can only associate myself with what engineer, is it Karue? There's an engineer who gave a proposal at the last engineers conference where he was saying that we should have a panel of experts in every discipline, so that when something like that happens, that panel is the one to go there on our behalf as IEK, conduct the necessary investigation in accordance with standard protocol, and give recommendations on behalf of the council. Now, right now, what happens is that if a building collapses, most likely, the secretary or one of the vice presidents will rush there and address the press, and then the matter ends there. No documentation, no investigation, no studies, nothing. And that still comes back to my policy, or rather my manifesto of structures. We must have structures in order to do these things instead of these individual, reactions which are not documented, which are not following any protocol. We just do it for the sake of being seen in the TV that IEK sent some people to, address. Yeah.
All right. So structures. Mushiri, structures. We are running out of the second session because I said this the time. We have 2 minutes. If there are more questions, I can start another session. If not, I will ask engineer to give his parting shot as a request for votes in 2 minutes. All right.
So I can go ahead?
Engineer, you can go ahead. Give us your parting shot as you request for votes.
Yes, I have explained myself. I've stated what I stand for. And what I stand for is what I want to go and do if I am privileged to be elected as Honorary Secretary. So they can still be done by us pushing who are there to do it. But I believe that if I'm there, because it is my passion, I have already outlined how I have struggled almost alone to push for the adoption of electronic voting, which all members have praised and they agree with. That is the best system that we have ever had. So I am appealing to members to give me the next 2 years to actualize some of these things which I think will take our institution to the next level. Give me your votes as your next Honorary Secretary, and I will strive to ensure that the structures are established and that later or in future, the Institution of Engineers of Kenya will not need to depend on the benevolence of the leaders, but will stand on those structures. So come 23rd of March, 2020, turn out in large numbers and vote. Last time, we only had a turnout of 700 out of 3,000 members of the institution. That was a very poor turnout. The election is very simple because you can vote from wherever you are in the world using your smartphone. So I don't see why all of us should not turn out to vote. So please turn out on the 3rd and vote. And for the position of Honorary Secretary, vote for Engineer Stephen AUMA. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all for joining. I will post this on YouTube, and our members can continue chatting on Telegram, and you'll ask engineer more questions. Otherwise, I thank you, our host.
Yeah, thank you.
Diana, thank you for hosting together with me. We will meet again on Saturday when we'll be hosting Engineer Ohaga. Otherwise, good night. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for.
Bye. Thank you, engineer.
Bye.
Okay.